So today we have Karen Krymski from Florida Apex Accelerator, Andy Bennett from National Center for Responsible Government Contracting, and Ashley Ferris, U.S. Special Operations Command, or the USSOCOM. So first up is going to be Karen Krymski with her presentation. And Karen Krymski has served as the PTAC, which is now the Apex Accelerator at USF for the past 8 years. In her tenure, she's assisted companies who are interested in gaining a revenue foothold in all levels of government, primarily federal. From their beginning registration through the end of strategy to assist in defining who might be an ideal federal customer, Karen follows a client-driven process to help them achieve success. She was the 2022 Florida State Star for the SBDC, achieving over $72 million in attributed government contract value in 2021 by her clients. In 2022, her attributed contract value was $79 million. Right.
Morning, everyone. I'm waiting for the slides to come up.
All right, Karen, take it away.
Okay, super. So good morning, everybody. I'm showing you this first slide because, as Sarah mentioned, probably many of you may have heard of the PTAC program in the state of Florida, but this is the new logo. We've been rebranded, being reconfigured. Formerly, we were under a different agency in the Department of Defense. So now we are directly under the Secretary for the Defense, which would be Lloyd Austin. So now we're working directly for the Office of Small Business Programs under DoD, which is really a good thing for us. Next slide. So I wanted to show you, this is the new slide, and the bottom logo is from the former PTAC. So you're probably familiar with the bottom one, but not so much with the top one. So we're going to be rebranding now, and we're actually in the process of rebranding. Everything should be completed in the next couple of months. In fact, you probably can't see it, but I have my brand new shirt on today with my logo. I just got it yesterday. So we're actually in the process, and also the website for government contracting under the SBDC is now rebranded with Apex Accelerators. So next slide, please. So I wanted to, is that the next slide?
Yeah, I think some slides were hidden, but I can.
Yeah, because I think that was.
Is this the slide you wanted?
There we go. Okay. All right. So, so according to the DoD, we're actually following their guidance in identifying businesses that can really work to be government industrial base, which is what GIB stands for, and DIB, which is defense industrial base ready. So I wanted you to see these are the kinds of things that if you came to me for government contracting, that we would be starting to work with you on. First of all, it's really important that you have a necessary your business controls. Do you have a business plan? Do you have access to capital? Do you have commercial past performance? All of those kinds of things are important in any level of government that you're going to go to. They want to see that you have a legitimate, solid business, that you're not going to not be able to perform. And if you're going to default, that's something they don't want to. So we work as a team. I'm part of the Small Business Development Center here in Tampa at USF. And we work as a team. So when I work with clients, I ask them about business plans. I ask them about access to capital. I ask them about a lot of different business skills so that they can be holistically 360 ready for government contracting. I work with clients on a capability statement and a competitive market strategy. And research is so very important in government contracting. Understanding the FAR. A lot of people don't understand the FAR and the contractor responsibilities. We want you to be registered legal in sam.gov, which is the federal registration for federal contracting, as well as your state and local vendor registration systems. So we want you to be aware of the FAR and your state and local regulations requirements. We want you to understand the and progress towards cybersecurity, and that's going to be very important. You're going to hear more and more about that in the federal system. The term you're going to hear is CMMC. And the last but not least is to recognize potential for your certified business status. And I think Andy's going to be talking about certifications a little bit later on this morning. Next slide, please. So I always tell my clients to start with a plan. It's not mandatory. We don't make you say, you have to do this, check, check, check. But it's really a best practice. It's a suggested sequence of activities, and it's really is a starting point, not just for government contracting, but for your business in general. Next slide, please. So I go through step one. So is your business government ready? First of all, are you registered in SunBiz? You'd be surprised at the people that come to me that say, oh, I'm registered or I'm a business, when they haven't really registered in SunBiz. And so those of you that are in Florida, if you are not registered in SunBiz, you must be registered in SunBiz in order for me as the government contracting person for the SBDC to work with you. If you're a S Corp or a C Corp, you must have a set of bylaws. If you're an LLC, you must have an operating agreement. You will get articles of incorporation from the state of Florida. That is not the same as your bylaws, your operating agreement. The state of Florida does not require you to have bylaws or an operating agreement, but every certification that you get in the federal system will require that. And it's really very good business practice. I mean, I can tell you from a personal perspective, because I have an S Corp, that it's extremely important for you to have these legal documents, because it basically outlines how you run your company and who's in charge. Are you a small business? I mean, if you're, that's one of the things that the government wants to know, especially for certification. This is usually determined by your North American Industry Classification Code, which is what NAICS stands for. Sometimes there are companies that can be small for one NAICS category and large in others. And so you really have to be mindful when you're bidding in the federal system, what NAICS code that they have established for the particular scope of work. Do you have commercial business momentum? We like to see businesses to go into the government sector that have 2 years of commercial sales, basically, business momentum. And how does government contracting fit in with your current business? That's really important. I actually have clients right now that don't have government contracting written into their business plan. So I have them modifying and updating their business plan so that they can kind of see how it fits or integrates, or is it going to be a separate kind of a standalone almost? Do you have basic financial controls? Amazing to me how many people come to me that they don't have an accounting program. I don't know how you can operate a business without an accounting program. We recommend QuickBooks. I mean, that's usually the one that's the most, the easiest and the most efficient way for you to manage your business. You can manage different types of products or services, so you can break it off from a management perspective to see what is driving your revenue the most. But you really do need some type of an accounting program. Do you execute well? Do you have your systems in place? Do you have your HR in place? Do you have your business resources that you can get if you need additional people? Knowing your numbers, your NAICS codes, your unique entity identifier, your EIN, you really need to know all of those. And do you have a go-to-market strategy? That's really, really important. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, preliminary market analysis. Marketing research is extremely, extremely important. There are over 500 federal agencies, state and local agencies that you can actually be involved in. And there's just way too many. You have to know what their needs are, how they buy. Are they buying what you sell? How do they buy what you sell? There are many, many contract pre-negotiated vehicles in the federal government. And that's really how they predominantly buy some things. For example, office supplies. A lot of agencies buy office supplies. IT services and products, a lot of those go under a GSA schedule. You really need to understand how that particular agency buys and who are the points of contact. Who do you need to be talking to? Because you have to be developing relationships. That's extremely important. So what level of government are you trying to serve? Which agency? I mean, there's many, many answers to the questions, and not all the same answer for every company, which is really important. I particularly like to use these several research tools and these are all federal research tools. So fpds.gov is where I usually start because it's very simple. It gives you top line historical, call it rear view information of who is getting the contracts, what kind. You can actually read in a lot of cases the description of the requirement, the value of it, what type of a contract it is, and so forth, and the agencies that are top line for that particular product or service. So I always start with fpds.gov. You can also use sam.gov, which is where the FPDS information is folded into. I particularly don't find sam.gov to be very user-friendly or time-friendly. So that's why I use FPDS to find that information. You can also use usaspending.gov. It's a much more of a drill down, and that's why I like FPDS to start. The next thing you want to know is always think about networking. Who is doing government contracting that you know? You always want to be networking. You will never know enough people that are in government contracting because something always shifts or changes. So you want to start making a list of who do you know that might be doing government contract, or that's already maybe in an agency or in a federal in a government agency at state, local, or federal. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is where FPDS I mentioned, so I wanted to just kind of step you through this. This is what the home screen of FPDS looks like. In that middle, you can see that I typed systems engineer. I happen to be doing that search for a client. You want to always put the words, multiple words in quotes if you're looking for that. You can use a NAICS code. You can use a product service code. You can put pretty much anything in there. The more specific you are, the better your results are going to be. Next slide, please. Okay, so I broke this out. This would be after you clicked Systems Engineer and hit Enter. These are some of the highlights that you would be looking at. On the far right, the first arrow, you're going to see date signed. So that's a very good place. You want to click date signed before you start looking at this, because this database goes back to the 1990s. 1990 data is not going to help you much now. So you want to go ahead and click on date signed so the most recent information comes up. On the next arrow to your left would be to the Office of the Secretary. That's who is buying it. The Department of Commerce is the contracting office. So these are types of things that you're looking for. Further to the left, it doesn't have a red arrow, but you can see the vendor name, which in this case happens to be Synerin Technologies. So now you know who that company is that got that contract. You can also see there to the right is an award type, which is a delivery order. That's something you always want to pay attention to, because if you start seeing FSS or some other type of acronym there, like GWAC or something like that, you know that's a pre-negotiated contract. So that's something that you always want to take a look for. Then over to the far left, you'll see the top 10 contracting agencies. So you can see in this particular search, the Department of the Army was the top one. And I know those numbers are really small, but I believe that that number next to the Department of the Army is 400, I believe. That's a relatively low number, because that's actually contracting actions. It's not contracts. And those of you that have been doing contracting know that you can have more than one contracting action under a contract. So that's a relatively small number. I like to see numbers in the tens of thousands. That to me is very rich data, and it tells you, yeah, that agency is really buying this stuff. So next slide, please. Okay, step 3, you want to register to do business with the federal government. Even FEMA, I get this question all the time. And especially when the hurricane happened to Ian last year, people were thinking, oh, well, they didn't need to register with the federal government. Yes, they needed to register with the federal government. So I would tell you that if you are considering doing federal work, I would go ahead and do your sam.gov registration. Go to sam.gov website. Do not Google that, because there are many, many companies out there that have a big butterfly net out there, and they will scoop you up and they will send you an email and they'll make it sound like they're going to do all this great and wonderful information, great and wonderful stuff for you. In reality, they're going to want to charge you money. Registering in SAM should be no cost. SAM.gov. It does have a 2-factor authentication. You usually put your mobile number in so you can get a code to get into your account. You do have to have your bank account information, your NAICS codes, and your EIN to start. That's where it all gets started. The government now assigns a unique entity identifier. They are no longer using DUNS as an identifier, but I will tell you from talking to prime contractors that they do a DUNS lookup on small businesses now, because they want to make sure you're not going to default on a contract. I was with General Dynamics a couple of weeks ago, and they told me they do a DUNS research on every small business that they use. So you will have, if you don't know what a DUNS is your credit report for your business. So much like you have a personal credit, a credit score, you will also have a DUNS score, and it will also tell anyone what you are deficient in, or how you didn't, or if you didn't pay on time. I had a client one time that didn't pay a water bill on time, and it showed up on her DUNS report. So you want to make sure that that you keep your credit report, personal and business, clean if you're expecting to do work for a large prime, because they will look at that. Just so you know, the SAM registration, it used to be a lot less complicated. It's rather wonky now, I guess we'll use that word, because it may take 4 weeks or more to actually get an approved. And what you're looking for is to get your cage code. You'll get an email in the beginning from them that says, now you have a UEI. Some people think that's it, that you don't need to go any further, but it's actually another part, step 2, which means you log back in and you click on update my registration, and then you can complete the registration. But this whole thing may take 4 weeks or more. And particularly if you're a newer business, it may take a little bit longer. And again, as I said, there should be no cost. And please, if people reach out to you and say, hey, we can do your SAM.gov, we can do your registrations, we can do your certifications, all that stuff, I'm going to tell you something. If they offer to do it, they're going to charge you, and they're not going to tell you until the back end. And you think, oh, this is great and wonderful. And then they're going to ask you for a credit card. That's when you know that you're in trouble. And they can charge you anything from $500 to $3,000. So, okay, next is preparing your basic materials. You definitely want to take a look at the SBA profiles, and I've put that link there. The SBA profile is a free marketing tool for all small businesses that are registered in SAM. I usually suggest people go there and research who else is in their domain that's doing the same kind of work that they do. And then for you to develop and publish your profile, you go to sbaconnect.gov. You really need a business card with a government version. I mean, most people have 2 sides to their business card. So one side can be commercial, one side can be business, which would include your UEI, your cage code, your NAICS codes, any certifications that you have. A capability statement, I referenced that before. It's a 1-page, some people call it a line card, some people call it a sales card, but it's basically a specific collateral that it is your business's resume, so to speak, for government contracting. You want to develop an elevator speech, 30 seconds when people ask what you do. And you also want to look at your internet presence. I usually recommend that people have a government page on their website, and that they pay attention to their social media and engage with different groups and so forth that may be benefit, that may give them some subject matter expertise. Next slide. Okay, your business development strategy. From your research, you want to develop 2 to 5 agencies that you want to target. This could be state, local, federal. Identify 20 individuals. That could be the small business officers. It could be people that are already in government contracting. It could be prime contractors. It could be somebody at a government contracting chamber of commerce link or whatever, but 20 individuals to start. You want to identify who the primes that are in that industry or area that really do a lot of work with that agency. Not that, and everybody will go after these primes. Everybody wants to do work with General Dynamics. Everybody wants to do work with SAIC or Leidos or Raytheon or Lockheed, because those are the names that people know. I would suggest that you look at people that are lesser known, larger primes that are doing work and getting contracts, because not everybody's going to be bombarding them. And those are the ones that you might want to start with. You want to research conferences, seminars, matchmaking events, pre-bid conferences, anything that you can attend. And things are really opening up, and I would encourage you as much in person as you can attend. That's really the way that people do business with people they know, like, and trust. It's not any different than in the commercial world. So get to know some folks that can really help you and lead you along your way. You definitely want to schedule networking time. You want to make sure you capture your contacts and make sure you follow up. You know, somebody said, oh, I met all these wonderful people at a conference, and then they just like drop off the face of the earth. So please follow up. Make sure that if you've promised them a capability statement, or you've promised them to be back in touch, make sure that you do that, and never stop networking. Next slide, please. So lastly, this is the roundup of everything that we've talked about. You want to develop a government plan. So you want to outline your targets and your priorities, your ongoing market research and networking that you're going to be doing forever and ever. You're never going to know everything you need to know about government contracting. You're going to develop your collateral materials. You're going to keep on going with your social media strategy, your prime contractor strategy, your strategy to market your designation. And you want to make sure that you establish a budget. And the budget would include time as well as money, because time is something you're never going to get back. That's why the research is so very important, because you don't want to keep going down rabbit holes and have to make U-turns after 6 months, because that's a lot of waste of time and money. So that's a very short, abbreviated version of what I help clients do, but it should give you an idea of what we do and how we help people. So next slide, please. And so to wrap it all up, if you are looking for help with government contracting services for your business, you can reach out to us, and we can set up an appointment to get you on your way, or find other business specialists that can assist you with getting a successful business going. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Karen. That was a great presentation. So if anyone has any questions, please write it in the chat log, and we'll go over it at the end, just in case someone else answers your question in that time frame. Okay, and next presenting, we have Andy Bennett, and let me tell you just a little bit about him. So he is the president of the National Center for Responsible Government Contracting. And Mr. Bennett has dedicated his professional career to educating and mentoring small business owners through the entire government contracting and acquisitions process. He graduated the U.S. Air Force Academy in 2002 and became a communications officer on active duty, where he gained firsthand experience through the federal acquisitions process and how cumbersome it can be. After deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan, Mr. Bennett separated from military service and shifted his focus to education and mentorship of small business owners on the benefits and nuances to the sector. For more than 20 years, Mr. Bennett has guided hundreds of entrepreneurs and business owners. Currently, he provides consulting services, mentorship, and education courses.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that. And actually, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind, leave Karen's slide 13 up. I want to highlight one thing to everybody on in the audience here. If you can key in on that second line on her top paragraph there, no cost consulting. All right, Sarah, you go back to my slides if you don't mind. So everybody on the call needs to realize that there are many, many, many resources to do this thing that we're talking about today, government contracting, that are absolutely free. There are people like me that will charge you for support services, but you do not have to pay to get into this industry. You can do your cage code registration for free. You can do your research for free. Ashley's going to speak in a minute. She is a wonderful resource to gain entry into. She's not going to write you a contract, but she's going to be a networking point of contact to help you navigate and help you understand those languages. So what I do is help out with that world as well. Next slide, please. So to get things started, I just wanted to kind of give an overview of the people from a very, very broad strokes perspective of who the folks are that you're talking to in this world. Because just like in the commercial industries that you're dealing with in the commercial companies, different people, different job titles have different roles and responsibilities as you go throughout that process. So for government contracting, for government acquisitions, it's no different. Go ahead and click, Sarah. So first up, and I like to have a little bit of fun with this, are the finance folks. And I actually spent some time on a phone call with a comptroller in SOCPAC in Hawaii yesterday, helping to get a client paid on their invoice. And that's what these people's role in life is, right? So they are not going to write you a contract. They do not have decision authority over who wins and loses contracts. Once you get the contract, let me back up. Imagine I run QuickBooks for my company, just like Karen mentioned. Imagine, if you will, running QuickBooks for a $7 trillion company. It's going to get kind of complicated. So the federal government has very, very complicated, and unfortunately it kind of has to be, but very, very complicated financial systems. Thankfully, as contractors, every contract that I've ever seen has points of contact for the finance people to help you get and instructions on how they want you to do the invoicing. 9 times out of 10, when I talk with a business owner that says, government contracting, too much red tape, they're slow to pay. There's actually law that says that Prompt Payment Act, you as a small business owner can request net 10 terms. So use these terms, use these laws to your benefit. The finance people are there to help you through this process. Reach out to them for that first invoice, because like I said, 9 times out of 10, it's not that the government is slow to pay, it's that that business owner submitted an improper invoice, right? So just understand that that's kind of the lay of the land. All right, next. Next we have, and we're in Tampa, you know, the Bay Area here, so Gasparilla is a thing. So I like to use this as my commander hat. The job titles change. I use commander because that kind of gives that sense of the person in charge. If you're talking about a commercial company, this is the president, this is the CEO, this is the COO. The difference here is that in commercial industry, the president, the CEO, has signature authority, decision authority over who wins and loses purchase orders or contracts that that company wants to enter into. In the government sector, this person is going to give what's called mission type orders, broad instructions to their organization at whatever, from the president on down. They're going to give broad direction as to what their office is going to work on, typically a year at a time. Great news, they publish this information. So you can look for forecasts, you can look for agency information, you can look for this information when you're doing your research. But again, the commander is not making the decisions on who wins and loses. They're giving that broad direction. All right, next slide. As the commander is talking, go ahead and there you go. The people who are sitting, listening, writing frantically are the end users. Again, job titles may change slightly depending on the agency that you're talking to, but it's the same bucket of skill set. These are end users, these are mission partners, these are PEOs, program executive offices, project managers, program managers, operations leads, technical points of contact. These are the government employees who are the subject matter experts in the thing that they're buying, okay? They are not awarding the contracts. Now, this is broad strokes again. Some project managers have decision authority for smaller thresholds of dollars. Set those aside because those are one-offs. From a broad process standpoint, these are the people who write the requirements documents. These are the people who are going to really, really key in on specifications or certifications or details. If you're ISO 9000, or if you have any of these like special machine, if you have a 3-axis machine versus a 5-axis machine, these are the people that are going to care about that. But again, they are not the decision authority. They're the subject matter experts. They're going to write that needs statement or that requirement, and then they're going to hand it off to, next slide, the contracting officer. The contracting officer is the only one in the federal government who has decision authority or signature authority to obligate the federal government. They are not the technical point of contact. They are not the subject matter expert. Their role in life is to understand the federal acquisition regulation, what Karen mentioned before with the FAR. They are the ones that understand the process. So what's important to these people? Competition, fair and equitable pricing. You don't want the 3,000% increase EpiPen, right? These are the kind of people that drives bonkers crazy. You need to look at it from what their perspective is. Are they satisfying their small business goals, right? It is incumbent upon the contracting officer to satisfy those small business objectives that we're going to talk about in a second. Contract officers care about competition, they care about process, they care about equity, and obviously small business utilization. They are very, very good stewards of the government dollar. So they're the ones that are making sure they follow the process as defined in the regulations. Okay, next slide. Now that we kind of have a sense of what hats these people wear, let's look at what water coolers they drink water around. Okay, and one thing that you can look at as kind of an indicator is the email that they're using, okay? On the left side here, individuals like Karen, outstanding resources for you to get started in this world. She is not going to write you a contract though. She is going to help navigate you through this process for free, okay? These are Small Business Administration outreach programs that the government pays for because they know their process is very, very complicated. So they have SCORE, they have SBDC, Small Business Development Centers. They have what used to be PTAX, now Apex. Those are outreach centers across the country that are there to help you through this process. On the right side here, I just use FEMA as an example. At the top is that commander, that person in charge, the boss, the director, the secretary, the commander, okay? Again, working on all their way down, contracting officers, all the way down to the end users. A crazy bonkers thing about how the federal government works is sometimes the Army will do the buying on behalf of the Air Force, or sometimes NASA will do the buying on behalf of the Navy. Right. So sometimes that contracting officer sits in a different organization than the end user. So just know that that's a thing. That's just part of how the federal government works. Key in on that small business advocate, John Smith is not a real person, by the way, so don't email any of these people. But what I do want to call out is because you have one of those people on the call with you today. So Ashley is that person for SOCOM, and she's going to talk about how she and her role can help you after I'm done. So pay attention to her and understand where she sits in her organization, and then others like her. Different offices call it different things. Small business office, office of small and disadvantaged business utilization. There are lots of titles that kind of have the same flavor that are doing the same function. All right, next slide. Now let's talk about small businesses. The federal government, by law, it's federal regulation that has to do a certain percentage of work of that contract, not the full $7 trillion budget, but the actual funds that are put out on competition, okay? So we're still talking $1 trillion or so, but of that contracted money, 23.7% of that budget has to be spent, has to be obligated, has to be awarded to small business companies, total small business. Within that category, 5% has to be awarded to minority-owned companies. 5% has to be awarded to woman-owned small businesses. 3% with veteran-owned, and 3% with hub zone. Think of hub zone, it stands for historically underutilized business zone, economically depressed areas, okay? So go ahead and go to the next slide. What does that actually equate to in dollars? Go ahead. So the total small business category for an entire fiscal year, right, October through September, equated to about $150 billion, one 12-month period. Okay, next slide. And then we've got each of those categories that I mentioned and how much actual funding is there. If you are a minority-owned woman, if you are an African-American female who owns her own company, then you actually can qualify for both of those top two categories, and you can win contracts in both of those top two categories. This reporting, because each contract is only able to be set aside and classified under one of those categories. So your African-American woman-owned company will only get credit for each individual action into one of those categories, okay? So you can compete full and open against Lockheed Martin and L3 and everybody, all the big boys, but you also have the benefit as small businesses to go through these certifications, okay? So that, and again, these are all things that you can do for free. I did my own veteran-owned small business certification, and it took about 24 hours. Have all of your business documentation, go to the websites, and put in the application. So it's very, very straight. It's much more straightforward than it used to be. Okay, go ahead to the next slide and just advance through this. The government's a little bonkers as how they spend. We talk a little bit about this in more detail, but the July, August, September timeframe is very, very busy because that federal fiscal year is coming to an end. Contracting officers want to make sure that their books, their accounts are cleared and all of their funds are obligated by the end of that fiscal year. Go ahead and go to the next one. I want to get through these next two slides and then I'll hand it off. Okay, so this, don't get scared away by this. This is just so you've been exposed to the terminology. This is the acquisitions process, but this is the same process if they're buying pens and pencils or if they're building battleships. Not all contracts go through all of these steps. All right, go ahead and advance. If you are a small business, there's something that you need to know about called the rule of two. If a contracting officer knows that they have to set aside 5% of their work for woman-owned small businesses, but they don't have time to go out and hunt for small businesses that can satisfy that requirement, what do? It's a rock and a hard place. So what they do is they will do market research, requests for information, sources sought, all kind of the same flavor of the same step. If you respond to those and they are not looking for pricing, this is not the bid, this is informational, okay? This is a less than 5-page kind of response. Hey, yes, we're interested, we can do that type of thing. We'd love the opportunity to help you, okay? Very, very high level. If you respond to those, pay attention to what Karen said. Have your cage code, have your certifications, have your capability statement, have those things and the answers to the questions that the government is asking, and respond. Because if that contracting officer for that opportunity gets 2 or more woman-owned small businesses to respond in the market research phase, then that contracting officer can set aside to only allow woman-owned small businesses to compete for that effort. And then everybody else, you've just limited your competition, okay? If you don't respond and you just wait, okay, I mean, you're just going to do full and open, which means you're competing against potentially hundreds and hundreds of other companies. One plug I do want to make as we're talking about small business utilization. Kevin asked a question earlier. It is not just government work you should be targeting. It is that prime contractor work. Here's a nugget for you. If a contract is valued at $750,000 or more, which is basically every large business contract, that large business company has to have a small business utilization plan. They have to use you as a subcontractor because they're required to meet those small business objectives. The baseline are those same percentages. Some agencies go up and down. For example, Veterans Affairs really values, veteran-owned small businesses. So usually their percentage is much, much higher than 3%. So just know that that's a thing out there. Target and do your research around contracting, prime, the prime positions for government contracts, but also those prime contractors for large businesses. All right, next slide. Terms matter. As Karen mentioned, the NAICS code, the North American Industry Classification Code. Go ahead and advance. If you sell chairs, advance, and you're only researching for the NAICS code that you think makes sense for office furniture, sure, that makes sense. That looks like the right one to use for me. My opinion doesn't matter for a hill of beans, though. Guess whose opinion matters? Contracting officer. The contracting officer has to pick one NAICS code per contract, and it's their opinion that matters. Go ahead and advance 2 more. So these 2 other NAICS codes are for the same thing, but if I'm only doing research on that one NAICS code, I'm never going to see those other opportunities. So just know that that's a thing. Widen your lens about how other people may interpret what it is that you do, and be flexible on your search parameters. Ashley, I'll hand it off to you.
All right, thank you so much, Andy. That was great. All right.
Sarah, just to
And-
make sure we get through questions, don't worry about my bio and stuff. That I can talk to folks about at a later time.
Okay. All right, Ashley, whenever you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So my name's Ashley Farrier. I am the director of the Office of Small Business Programs for the United States Special Operations Command, located here. Our headquarters is located here at MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa. Like Andy mentioned, for DoD offices, they are called the Office of Small Business Programs. For other federal agencies outside of DoD, they are the Office of now I can't even think of the acronym, but if you see Office of Small Business Programs, it is a DoD agency. Next slide, Sarah. So USSOCOM is a little bit different in the fact that we're a joint command with multiple different authorities. So not only are we doing combatant command stuff. We are also doing acquisitions. Our commander has a lot of different authorities. The 4-star commander is located here at the headquarters at MacDill, but we do also oversee all of the other component theater or the component special operations commands for all of the big services. And then we also have theater special operations commands for all of the different areas of responsibility throughout the world, like SOCPAC that Andy mentioned earlier. SOCPAC is one of ours that we cover for the Pacific region. Next slide. So within US SOCOM, we have the Center for Acquisition Technology and Logistics. That's where I sit. We're overseen by an SES acquisition executive. She's new. We just got a new one within the past month or so. Ms. Melissa Johnson just took over for Jim Smith, if you guys had attended any previous local events before. Ms. Johnson is carrying on the same qualities and expertise that we've had previously. Our vision is really to be trusted experts within the Department of Defense for federal acquisition so that we can deliver capabilities to our warfighters. Next slide. So how we are split up, and Andy did mention program executive offices. That's what this chart represents. You see Ms. Johnson down at the bottom because she really likes to lead from the bottom up almost, so that she gives full authority to the program executive officers and their program managers for requirements, writing, and decision-making authority, and just making decisions that are best for our warfighter. So you'll see across here, we have several different PEOs for different areas. Most of them are here local at the headquarters for SOF AT&L at MacDill. However, PEO Rotary Wing is not located here, and then PEO SOFSA for our kind of logistics and support activity is up actually in Lexington, Kentucky. But the rest of the folks here are local to the Tampa Bay area, and we do have a very large contracting or procurement office. I actually spent many years as a warranted contracting officer, just around 13. So I'm very familiar with not only the small business programs, but the contracting process in general. I know it can be very overwhelming when you're first getting started in government contracting, but that's what folks like Karen and Andy and myself are here for, to help lower the barriers to entry for government contracting. I'm specifically assigned to special operations. However, we do have close relationships with the small business specialist that's located at MacDill Air Force Base for the 6th Air Mobility Wing, as well as the small business offices across the DoD. Next slide, please. So SOCOM has a very wide array of what we procure. This is some of our more soft, peculiar, special operation forces peculiar or unique items that we purchase. We are anywhere from undersea to space at this point. Our acquisition authority is specific to SOCOM unique or SOCOM peculiar goods and services. So while we do buy some commercial type items like laptops to go on our government computer systems and phones and things like that, they're usually modified in specific ways, or there's different requirements, and we do have the authority to purchase those. If I'm buying, let's say, office furniture, like Andy mentioned, that's not usually something that we buy. That's something that we would go to another contracting agency who does more of that commercial type purchase. A lot of that is done through the 6th Contracting Squadron on base on our behalf. And they help us out with some of those procurements that are not unique to SOCOM, to SOCOM's mission. But we are very small within the overall big picture of DoD. I like to tell people we're like the small business of DoD because we're less than 2% of the overall DoD budget. However, our mission and our capability is so great that we are kind of leading the way in acquisitions and technologies throughout the federal government. Next slide. This just gives you guys an example of the different NAICS, which both Karen and Andy mentioned earlier, on under which the program executive offices, what ones they kind of focus in. These were the top NAICS codes for FY22. And we will get this updated. You will notice that the PEO's names have changed a little bit since this information was provided. That just happened last year. So we are working to get this updated, but you'll see there's a very wide variety, and a lot of our money does get spent on service contracts. Not really commercial services like janitorial or landscaping, but professional services. We have anything from program management, accounting, finance managers, intel analysts, a very, very wide variety of services that we require. But these are some of the unique NAICS codes that USSOCOM currently operates in. Next slide. So in FY23, we awarded over $1.3 billion directly to small business prime vendors. That does not include any of the subcontracting that was done through large or other than small companies. These are direct awards to small business primes. It became, or it grew from FY22. We did about 31% of our budget was awarded to small businesses. So we grew over 10% in FY23 to over 42%. And we anticipate that continuing to grow. Like I mentioned, our mission is so unique within the Department of Defense that we do have, our mission allows it ourselves to work directly with small businesses, because those are where we're usually getting innovation and agility from, to be completely honest with you. And I know we're going quickly. So next slide. My office is, of course, the small business office. We are there to be basically the point of entry. We're there to give you information on how it's best to do business with the United States Special Operations Command, or give you advice. If you come to me and ask me, hey, Ashley, this is what we do, or this is what we sell, I can let you know if it's something we would be even interested in, because if it's not worth you expending all of that time and energy focusing on our command if there are better resources within DoD or some of the federal agencies that we can help you reach out to. So I know that Sarah's going to follow up with contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. My office does host office hours on Thursdays, either virtually or in person. Our in-person space is out in Ybor City at our Softworks location, but we are basically the first line of entry into SOCOM if you have any questions or anything at all. Next slide. We also have tools out on our website to assist you. ESOF is more for innovative technologies or capabilities. Vulcan is actually out there. It's almost a yellow pages of capabilities where SOCOM program managers can go out and look for keywords and find all the companies that match them. If you have questions about that, again, my office is here to answer anything that you might have. Next slide. Then we also have a very robust small business innovative research program. If you guys are in the R&D or development type companies or industries, SIBR is a great way to get started because all it takes is an idea. SOCOM utilizes the DoD SIBR portal for posting our topic areas. The one thing that is unique to SOCOM compared to some of the other DoD agencies is that when we have a topic posted, we actually have funding to support those topics. Some other agencies put out topics that aren't necessarily backed with funding. So even if you get selected, you might not necessarily get a contract. SOCOM's topics always have funding to back them up if you get selected. Next slide. Also in the R&D field, but doesn't follow the same SBIR timelines and process, we do have an open broad agency announcement. All of this information can be found on our website at www.socom.mil. And the BAA is also for R&D type services. And again, all it takes is an idea and a white paper. Next slide. We do host technical experimentation events 3 times a year, again, on the website. This is through our Science and Technology Directorate. And they are different topic areas for every event that they have. You actually apply to that through Vulcan with your Scout card. They make a down select and then send you an invitation to come and showcase your capability to some of our soft operators and the end users. Next slide. And then, like I mentioned, Softworks is a little bit different. They are a nonprofit organization that's born out of DefenseWorks that is unique to special operations. They are located physically over in Ybor City. That is where we host our Thursday office hours. We also host a small business boot camp there at least once a year. And to join their ecosystem and to find out what events might be applicable to you, if you visit softworks.org and click join the ecosystem, you'll get automatic email updates from them. They host a whole wide variety of events out there on behalf of special operations to find not only local capabilities within the area, but also to discuss what the future of technologies look like, because sometimes the government just doesn't know. Everyone would like to think that the government has so much expertise in all of this stuff that we are leading the way, and that's just not the case in most instances. Companies have a way better vision or a way broader view of the marketplace sometimes than the government actually does. Next slide. So just kind of following up, I know we only have a couple minutes left. This is our contact information, myself and my deputy. When I mentioned that SOCOM is a small place, we are also a very small office. It's just the 2 of us, but we get out to a lot of local events. If some of you have participated in Smart Start, there was a field trip several months back. Paula and I actually joined you guys at the local Pasco First. And ESOF and SBIR, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's really what I'm here for, to answer any questions that you might have. Even if it's not SOCOM specific, I sometimes can assist just based on being in contracting for a very long time and being in the federal government. But with that, Sarah, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Ashley. That was great. And I know we're just about out of time. I did just want to go through any questions we have just real quickly. And before that, I just did want to just provide some information on local contracting here in Pasco County. So Pasco County does have a purchasing department, and they handle all the different contracts. The contact for that is Carrie Roberts. She's the director. And again, I'll send out these slides and the others too, so you have that information. And their purchasing department page has a lot of good resources, and they have a vendor guide to how to do business with them. And it seems fairly straightforward. You have to register on bidnetdirect.com, and local businesses, which are essentially Pasco-based businesses that do business in Pasco County, are given preference in a lot of different situations. All right, now we can see if we have any questions here. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I'm not seeing any questions. Andy, did you say you saw a question before?
There were
directly to
3.
you.
There was
Okay.
one from Kevin and one from Laura, but I think we got them answered.
Okay. The other speakers, they may have sent the questions directly to you. Can you go on your chat and see if you have any questions that haven't already been answered?
I do not.
I don't have any.
I don't either.
Okay. Well, I had a quick question. So, Karen, for Apex, do you host like regular events or memberships for networking or anything like that? I know we spoke a lot about networking today, so I'm just wondering if there's channels
So
through
from
APEC.
February through November, which we just completed our last one, we have a government contracting breakfast, which is the first Thursday of the month. Like I said, we just completed that series. We're going to start back again in February 2024. We've already put the calendar together for that. I believe the first one's February 8th. We don't have the topics assigned yet. Other than that, we have an on-demand schedule of webinars that you can access through our SBDC Tampa Bay under our training link. And you can access anything there for free, basically, or anything through the Florida Small Business Development Center. Right now, everything is free and open. So I encourage you to go look at any business topics, government contracting topics, or whatever. I encourage you to do that. That's primarily how we offer information on an ongoing basis.
Okay, awesome. And someone asked if there's a replay of the session today, and yes, I will be sending out a recording shortly with the replay and the other materials, the slides from everybody and everybody's contact information as well.
Hey, Sarah, what
Yes.
I'd like to do is in the chat, I want to put the link if people want to register for a consulting appointment. And that way they can just click on that and it just takes them right to the link and they can put their information in so we can get them in the queue. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that's in now.
Just making sure there's no more chats. Oh, yep. And Karen just sent over that link for scheduling consultant, and that will also be on these slides right here under her image and her contact information as well when I send that. All right. And looks like all the other questions have been answered. So thank you, Andy, for that. All right, and if there's no other questions, please definitely reach out to anybody here. If you do have questions, reach out to me too if you have any questions about anything or would like to schedule a visit sometime in the future with Pasco EDC. And thank you so much again, everybody, for attending, and thank you for the speakers, the experts, for coming today and sharing all your knowledge. It was very helpful, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.